Okay,
There you
maybe
go.
we are liars.
Special one, number one tonight, Fregrowli up in the house.
Cheers,
What's
guys.
going on, my brother?
Oh, just chugging along, doing that, that thing we've been doing for a long time. Just focused on the terps and the hash, growing
This
families.
makes me smile, man. It's almost like the fucking round table again, dude. It's like a little bit of a beginning.
I got very excited when you guys came up with this idea, and yeah, it definitely takes me back. And I was trying to think about it earlier today. I was trying to think about the last without actually looking it up, and certainly we can, but I'm curious to know when the last episode we did was. I don't even know if it's still out there, but
we can probably put somebody on that.
I don't know.
God, I don't know when that was either.
They're still
It
out,
feels like
they're still out
forever.
there on the High Times website.
Are they really?
Oh
Are
wow! Oh, that's right.
Yep.
He did put them there.
I knew they were there at one point, but I wasn't sure if they
That's
were still there.
crazy. That's been a minute ago. Probably what, 3 or 4 years ago, at least.
I was thinking it's like,
GrowTube.
was
Oh,
it
we did
19 or
listen to the
18? You
song.
know, because
It-
we
it's
definitely
Has
like
it been
took some
that
breaks
long?
and stuff.
Benji.
Damn. Yeah, I guess it precedes Aubrey too. Wow. That's been a long fucking
I
time.
was like,
All right.
what is this?
All right.
Colorado
Yeah,
Green
that's-
wants the
That's
volume
been a
up.
minute. Oh, see, they want the volume up. All right, just blast me away. I don't care. I don't need to.
You're a blast. Okay.
We'll go back to
Nope.
automatic.
We shut the
Let's
shit
go.
down and we turned it down because they were blowing my eardrums.
Evan, Colorado
quite
Green,
literally.
darking out, and Doc Easy E. So, guys.
Pedro, something tells me you got that those headphones set at 100 though.
Probably. I wish I could turn them down to not 100.
But he doesn't know how because he's a
Is
pro
that better, Colorado Green?
Sometimes I'm not good.
I mean, he's got way more hours than probably any of us, right? Like,
Man, you guys were beating me up tonight. Holy cow.
It's just a long-standing joke, and you know it.
All right, now talk.
testing.
No,
one,
no one
two.
said anything.
Sorry.
No.
I don't know if you've noticed, Pedro, but there is a chat comments tab that combines all your chats together for you.
You're
No, I have not noticed that either. I'm glad we're doing this as not like officially number one. I'm glad we did not. I feel like we did not alert people about this.
Yeah, this is a surprise kind of in the moment thing. We are, I think multicasting is the word. I think we're live on my channel. I know we're live on my channel on YouTube. It's been a long time since I really put much content on there.
You
So,
did go to YouTube. I was thinking about it. I didn't. And now I wish I would have.
multi-stream.
I know I never had these options in the other, we used StreamYard before, but I haven't had these types of options to play with. So I'm going to take
I turned
advantage
it on
of
for
them. Let's go.
No, great idea, Budsy, for sure.
Cheers, everyone.
I've got a beer. Cheers.
I've got a dab.
I'm ready.
Yeah, let's go.
I'm big time ready. And then we can, like I said, like we were talking about pre-show, I'm very interested to see where this conversation goes. I'm sure it'll have a little bit to do with chat, steering us a little bit, and perhaps just a little bit of us steering each other. But it could be interesting. And I'll try to remember to mute when I'm blasting the fucking torch over here.
Not a fan of the email nowadays, or just never been. I guess we'll get to that. I'm rocking the email and my dirty banger. Like I told these guys pre-show, I cleaned the rig, did not clean the banger, so it is what it is. But I'm chiefing on some caps break, and caps break is actually cap junkie mixed with point break. 2 strains, fresh frozen, harvested, expertly grown by 321 Genetics, another caregiver here in Michigan, breeder as well. And he kind of gave me the option to play with some strains and make some crosses, whatever, some mixes, some combos, if you will. And I'm a fan of point break. It's kind of got that orange, tangy, leaning flavor. So anytime I get a chance to mix that with anything, I'm going to probably do it. And chose cap junkie, and it's pretty tasty. It's a little bit heavier hitting than just like a straight clementine.
got some orange terps over here as well.
Ooh.
And man, I tell you what, as far as getting to play with terps, getting to do those collabs and getting to mix stuff together, and again, we'll get to this as far as solventless and whatnot, but getting to pull specific micron sizes and potentially mix them together and do different consistencies with the different pulls and whatnot is great to be able to do. But you have to have a business that is thriving in order to be able to have money to play with that,
R&D is expensive. Even with the cannabis budget, it probably should be put in there and your planning, you know what I mean? Because we are so experimental. But on the tech side of things, I gotta imagine they're probably like I don't know, what is it, like a 8%, 12% standard or something, that their overall money's going towards R&D.
I mean, I guess it all depends on what your end goal is, but yeah, it ends up being extremely expensive. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's a lot of risk, and I don't know. I guess maybe some reward. It's not like you're at a caregiver level probably going to be doing anything groundbreaking, but you still have to try. You know what I mean? You still got to figure it out.
Yeah, the personal R&D, not considering the commercial R&D, the personal R&D, that's got so many facets to it, man. Yeah, it really, really depends on what you're doing personally as far as R&D goes, because you can just sit on rosin and do nothing, your entire life. God bless Frenchie, but you can just pull ice water hash and sit on ice water hash all your entire life as well, right? Like, we can stop where we want to stop, but that R&D is what separates us from the rest of the pack, right? So to real quick to answer your question, the e-nail thing, man, our smoking, our consumption has changed so drastically since the last time, since the last roundtable or the last time we went live together. Number one, we've got glass cabinets where we've got just tons of heady, high quality.
You got your own gallery now, dude. Like, I remember seeing this thing kind of progress, and but dude, like you got your own gallery.
Yeah, we officially have our own gallery, the Heady Vault. We've been running that now for years now, obviously. We've moved on. We've sold our own Quartz, which kind of got us away from the e-nails. We partnered up with people along the way, which has kind of got us away from the e-nails as well. The e-nails, the bangers got very dirty, and it was very tough to keep them clean. And what other reasons can you think of off the top of your head that made us jump from the e-nail?
Well, okay. It was just constantly hot, so you were always worried about burning yourself on that shit.
That's true too, I suppose.
But B, the dirtiness factor had a lot more to do with the quality of each dab taken, because the terps from the previous dab were now cooked on to the bottom of the banger and sort of soiling it for the next dab. So yeah, it's just it tastes different.
Yeah, you maybe get what, like out of it, realistically out of e-nail, if you're shutting it off in between dabs, which to keep it clean, that is kind of what you have to do.
Yeah.
If you're shutting it off in between dabs, you still only get like a dozen dabs out of it before you got to deep clean that thing anyway. You know what I mean? And if you're like me, and where you're taking 50 to 100 dabs maybe out of it before you really take a torch to it and clean the crap out of it. Which what do you guys think about that? I've gotten mixed opinions on MBGS about whether or not it's clean or you should just toss the dang thing depending on how much you spent on it, because some of my bangers, well, pretty much all my bangers are in that $25 to maybe $60 category. But there's some excellent hand blown, even local bangers that you get for $280. They about start at, you know what I mean? So
yeah.
I've never invested that much in it. I don't own a gallery, you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, like my slurpers are like that much, but
Oh, sorry. Go
Did
ahead.
you, Buds? Oh, sorry. It's okay. Go ahead. I was just
Oh.
gonna say that we have it, but we clean it every single time when it's like that. You
From my
literally
understanding, with the
soak
turf
it
slipper,
every
you have
time.
to, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
First and foremost, my first thought is if you're shutting your e-nail off after every single dab, what the fuck do you even have an e-nail
Right,
for?
right.
Like throw that thing away, retire it. It's done.
That's the only way I can conserve dabs.
First of all, what was the consumption? Was the quality of the dab was where it was going next? You know, we're at a level, and you know, I'm not trying to tap myself on the back or whatnot, but we're at the point now in which we're at a different level of smoking, right? I grow and process, isolate my own terpenes, and I want to be able to enjoy them to the highest quality that I can. And I guess that's probably one of the biggest ultimate reasons for me to have switched from an e-nail. You know, and I guess another nice thing about moving over to a torch and God, we can get into the blender versus bucket conversation as well, is I get to control the temperature I want based on the size dab that I take. So if I'm taking a smaller, you know, just a quick, real quick, small dab, you know, I can go in at 530, 540, and be fine with it. But if I want to go in on that big half grammer, you know, I can dump it in at 610 and it'll suck the whole dab down. It'll
Be no pooling or anything like that.
yeah, exactly. I mean,
It'll vaporize.
you want it to be pulled a little bit, you know, you don't want it to just completely fucking burn all of the oil gone.
But not after
but
like 6 carb caps. You're just sitting there like, all right, let's, you know, half it in here. I'm just stuck in the chimney still. Like,
so I mean, there is definitely there's definitely ways. I don't know where I was going with it.
But as somebody who just switched over, what made you switch over, and what do you think of the change?
Yeah. I mean, I had cheap quartz for the longest time. You know, I hated the thought of spending $300-400 on a banger. I noticed how they take heat and how they retain heat is drastically different. The more expensive bangers hold heat better, longer, more consistent. Sometimes take a little longer to heat depending on the banger. And I noticed the temperature is more consistent through the whole banger. It's just, they also last longer.
They do seem to last a lot longer.
I
sure.
chazzed every cheap banger I had at some point. Just cloudy, gross, within 3 months, you know.
Yeah.
I don't even remember who the fuck makes this one. Sorry, I'm stoned.
Dude, I've been there. I'm with you.
The damn the Joel Helen.
Oh, yeah.
I don't freaking remember.
Yeah, the bucket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The buckets of Halen. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That one, I beat the shit out of it, and it just takes it. Like,
I have like 5 Halens that I just beat the fuck out of them. I travel with them, you know, and I'm a guesstimate kind of dabber when I'm traveling. I have a temperature device when I'm traveling, but I just never use it. I don't know. I'm like, well, I'm playing Russian roulette a little bit, I guess. Let me ask this one: what is your preference now for Fregrowli as far as consumption? And that is, do you have a preference, whether it's solventless, BHO, PHO, distillate?
well, it's certainly not distillate, but I would say single source what I grow myself is probably my preference. In terms of how it's getting there, I don't have a preference, man. We dug out the freaking 2-foot bong and cleaned that, you know, gave it a nice deep clean, and been smoking garlic punch out of a bong for the last 2 weeks. You know what I mean? I you know, we got the e-nail going, and lately it's just been like, you know, flick it on, we'll go do a dab or whatever. Typically, you know, it's just, yeah, leave it on. Sometimes it's left on overnight. Oops, you know, and and it, you know, but that to your guys' point earlier about the bangers, it's almost like a cheat code for a cheap banger, because it's keeping the heat consistent, because there's a coil wrapped around it. You know what I mean? It's It's like it's a lot less work, but there's a lot less art and control in it. And I don't think that I think that if I invested like you guys into some quality glass, I would certainly have a different opinion. But for me, honestly, a big part of it is convenience. That's why I love like a Puffco Peak Pro. Fits in a cup holder. It's a battery operated dab rig. You know what I mean? And I know that's kind of the name brand one or whatever. There's a lot of them out there that you can use. But anything mobile like that is fantastic as long as it gives you a quality of dab. And there's a lot that don't. There's a lot that really quickly burn it. There's a lot that make everything taste the same. And there's a lot of things to avoid. And I think a big part of that is probably the quality of the bucket that you're dropping it in.
Yeah, sure.
Do you guys
I left the Peak Pro. It as well as it gave a good, decent, consistent dab. It couldn't handle the size dabs I wanted to give.
It's a baby dab. But did you see the new one they came out with? I got an email today about like this new atomizer or whatever they're calling it. That it's like, I don't know, 70 something, right? Yeah, 3D XL, XXL, triple, quadruple XL, whatever. It's supposed to just be bigger. You know what I mean? And I think that's what they're addressing, is the fact that people like us are like, all right, this is cool and it's on the go, but if I don't have the Peak Pro and I can't like customize the settings and make this thing run for about 2 minutes at the temperature I want it to get enough dabs for me and the people around me, you know what I mean? It's kind of like, it's just another novelty.
That makes me sad as fuck for getting rid of my custom fucking Peak topper. I had a custom glass piece blown for my Peak and I got rid of it. That's all right.
Yeah, I found that the iSpire works pretty well. The one that we got with the what is it, magnetic heating or whatever.
The induction.
Induction.
Oh, induction. Heating. Nice. Okay.
Yeah, that one works pretty well.
That's got to be a pretty even distribution of heat, right?
It doesn't tend to burn it. Sometimes it doesn't give me quite as much of a dab as I wanted, but like you can just hold the button, of course, and give it a little bit more.
Oh, we're gonna need to do round 2 on this one.
We're gonna need a little bit more heat. So it works pretty good.
And as much traveling as I've done, I've definitely used the travel e-rigs, and I've always gone back to the torch and at least torch bucket. I tried traveling with the torch blender, and cleaning the blender on the go or a slurper on the go is just too much.
Yeah,
but I'm a torch bucket guy, even on the go, like on the go, actively on the go.
I just don't like how hot then everything is. Like you have that cool down period for not only the bucket but the torch itself. So like I don't know.
I won't even carry my rigs downstairs, let alone take them with me when I leave.
No, you don't? Oh, shit. Okay.
No, they don't leave my desk.
Oh. That's amazing. It's probably way better policy than I have because I've broken way too many things.
Probably.
Right? Yeah. Like I can't move with that much shit.
You've thought about investing in some cases.
I have a whole bunch of cases. They've all come with them. They're in the shed.
I have my travel rigs. I'll have the only rigs that I will travel with, which is 2 rigs. So it's not a lot.
I kind of laugh when
I've been looking
stuff just into this room for this show because I'm carrying my rig and then 2 puke and beagle setups, and I'm like, this is a lot.
I was looking at like the Carta and those type just for a portable for us. That's about as far as we'll go. Otherwise, it'll be just I'll go to this dispo, buy a saltless pen if I have to.
Well,
we don't leave the house that often.
I just feel like, and maybe I'm wrong now, but at least when we were playing with the e-rigs, there was never an e-rig that could give me the size dab that I wanted from the size dab that I was dropping into the bucket.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like if I wanted to do a big dab with an e-rig, sure, it might handle it, but it's going to give it to me at 400 fucking degrees,
Yeah.
And if I want that big of a dab, I want a 610, 620, I don't want this bullshit little dab, so it was just never, there was never an e-nail that sufficed. Just never made me happy.
Nothing to keep up.
Well, e-nail or portable?
Sorry, portable
Yeah. Okay.
e-rig.
Because I agree, dude. I agree with you there. I will say e-nail, you just adjust the temperature. You know what I mean? That's like you'll get there. You'll get there with e-nail.
Yeah.
But I did have a question. What is your guys' current preference in terms of bangers or buckets? And not only style, like you just said. I think you said you like the torch in a bucket. But we mentioned terp slurpers. But is ceramic only for mobile nowadays? Is that only for like the disposables? Is everyone rocking that hand blown glass? What do you guys? What's your preference there?
As far as the e-rig, no idea. Last I knew it was the God damn it, brain just fucking farted on
Like
me.
ceramic, the white,
the ceramic
inserts.
That I don't think there was even. I don't think they had quartz at the time. Now my preference is and it's Victory Quartz, but it's not necessarily like it has to be Victory Quartz. They call this well, I call it a blender. They call it a God damn it, what is it?
It's called a brain
a cross between a blender and a
terp slurper.
And a slurper, yeah.
I've been told the difference once. I couldn't tell you what they are though. Something about the way that's angled or something.
Yeah, it's something about the slits on the bottom, whether the slits are in the walls or if the slits are in the bottom, or
hold it back up, because that right there is, what do you call that again?
This is a blender.
Okay, and then see Dizzy's. See how so a blender is the cone shape, I think, where the slurper has got the like 90-degree dish type style. I think that's the difference. That's what I've been told.
Evan says you call it a hybrid. That's right. This one is a hybrid for whatever reason. They call it a hybrid. This one happens to be, I don't know if you're ever going to be able to see it, but it's a custom one. You can see the Chaz on it too. It says on one side, because you're never going to be able to see it, it says the chemicals kill, cannabis heals. And I got the permission from Mendodope to use that. On the other side, it's got the medicine symbol.
The snakes wrapping around the
Yep. And then down the neck has the Pedro's Grow Room, and then it's actually got a little beard.
Oh, no way. That's awesome.
But so I got that one from Victory. They do have them on their website, the ones that we did a collab on, and they're actually the blender, the exact one that I use, the tall, the same height, the same width, the same everything. And I really like their quartz. I did hear a glass blower at one point in time say quartz is quartz. It's just about how it's put together. So it's all about the thickness. It's about the welds, and it's about how it's constructed. So I love the thickness of this banger. The customer service of Victory seems awesome, and they're not an arm and a leg. I think these are like 100 and 140, 160, something like that. So
nice.
They're not bad at all. I did the buckets for forever. I still do have some the LA High Life, great big buckets, 30 millimeter buckets, and we've got the round bottoms as well. We never did a collab with LA High Life. We were talking about it, but I think it goes back to the size of the dab, the quality of the dab, the thickness of the dab, whatever word I'm looking for there. I get a better, thicker cloud, more satisfaction, I guess. I don't know, with this hybrid or this blender than I do with any other method. Even I don't even really like using a blender anymore. I just don't. I don't know. I can't verbalize why I don't. I just don't.
I think talking growing a lot, for so long, we talk about air movement and air flow, and I think that has a lot to do with the way we dab too. And too much air flow, including too much of that other oxygen or whatever, the air around you, I guess, which I suppose is mostly nitrogen, right? That including too much of that kind of softens the dab too much, makes it draw out too long, and can kind of cool it down and all these other things. And I found that out kind of the hard way by just having too big of a neck. You know what I mean? Like I think we were at 18 millimeter or whatever. Now the standard is, I think, 10 and 14. So we were even having trouble finding parts for an e-nail that would fit this dab rig, because most e-nails aren't even 18 or whatever it was millimeter. So we finally kind of reduced that, right? And that's more of the air flow, right? But the air movement is another fun thing. And that's kind of everything that's going on inside of the rig itself. But even more recently, what we can talk about is, what are the terp pearls and all these other balls and chains and things that you're sticking on top of slurpers. And, like there's so many different options now and sizes and, 1 ball, 2 ball, 3 ball, big ball, little ball, like different colored ones, what do we do?
Yeah, it's overwhelming.
2 big balls.
2 big balls, of course. God, it's such a valid point, that you just come up with. This extremely valid point. Some different rigs function better with different bangers because of their airflow, their
For
restriction, and then yes, the way that the banger, let's call it, banger, slurper, blender, whatever the fuck we're going to call it, the way it moves the oil, which is also the airflow, sometimes you'll get a blender, slurper, banger that just sucks it down the neck, when you're gonna, there's the other thing too, your style. Are you a big, do you like a big 0.5 gram dab every time, or do you like this little rice size dab every time? How do you hit your banger or how your rig? Do you rage it, or are you just a little slurper? How big's your lungs? So there's so many different factors that can go into it. And I found out too, I know I'm speaking a lot, but my fucking show, I've noticed a lot too that when you put more things in the blender, it tends to hold the oil in a different location. Like when I first started with the hybrid, I was the big proponent of putting nothing in the blender, just letting the oil move around the walls of the blender. But the minute that I put in a pearl or a pillar of any kind, it took that 0.5 gram dab when I dropped it in there and kept it towards the bottom of the blender. It didn't allow it to raise up to go down the neck of the banger, slurper, blender, whatever you call it.
Pick one.
Yeah, I'm wondering if there's like a certain point at which you should, like, obviously we want to heat it up at a certain point, but where's the perfect cool down point? You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes I hit it just too hard and all of a sudden I'm sucking down, way too much liquid oil into my water, essentially, eventually,
It also matters how fast your quartz is cooling down, which is, sometimes they go faster, and so you got to pull it at a sooner.
That cheap quartz, dude. It's not holding it,
Unfortunately,
yeah.
Unfortunately, if you're slurping oil down the neck of your banger, you've got a shitty banger. Especially a shitty banger for the way you dab.
Or you're just sucking way too fucking hard.
That's what I'm saying.
That's pretty much it. But
calm down a little bit.
But I mean, if that's the way you dab, if you like raging, if that's the way you dab, they make blenders, they make slurpers for that type of a draw.
Yeah. I still need to change. I still pull a lot down right now. I forget and then rage it, and then the next day go, damn it.
Yeah.
A lot of shit in this fucking water.
Well, that happens when you dab fucking 25 times a day too.
Yeah.
Exactly. How speaking of, dabbing that much, obviously you gotta clean it a lot more. I'm watching you guys clean your I'm gonna call it, it's not a slurper. What's the other one?
Let's just call it let's just land on banger.
I'm watching you guys clean your bangers, and that's something you do kind of often. Obviously, you try to keep it in tip-top shape. What about the rigs themselves? How often do you guys are cleaning them, and how do you clean them? What are you guys cleaning them with? Because I've always cleaned really cheap glass because I've always bought really cheap glass. And sometimes when you buy really cheap glass and aren't really delicate with cleaning them, like you take your blazer torch to it to try to melt some of the wax that's at the bottom of it, and it just shatters the entire bottom of it. That, you know, this dab
Of your
that you've
rig?
had
Did you just say you took a torch to your
Yes, you
rig?
did.
Okay.
what
Yeah,
you
I
just
did. I
did.
wasn't thinking. I was just trying to heat it up a little bit. It very quickly shattered on me. I was very
I'm sure
surprised.
it did. That's called Boro versus Quartz.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I
That's
was not
funny.
patient enough for the ethanol to dissolve that bit of wax,
So
and I
first
paid
of
for it.
Cheers. Cheers to SBN.
Oh man.
I
Yeah,
definitely don't. I definitely don't. Hey, what's going on, Solomon Bank? What's going on, brother? I definitely don't clean the rig as often as I should, especially the water. And if you're like solventless bacon babe, you can just take a fucking dry dab out of your banger all day long. But anyways, I don't clean it enough. Probably should clean it realistically once every 2 to 3 days. Every day if you really can, to keep, you know, we're talking about these terpene profiles. We're talking about you know, keeping everything clean, like a clean palette, you know what I'm saying? Not mixing terpenes. I mean, if we're doing that, then we're gonna have to clean it every single day. Or we're gonna have a different rig for each different flavor that we have, you know. And this again gets down to how intricate do we want to be, how, you know, how picky do we want to be, you know. How I clean it, boy, how much time do you have?
Honey.
Well, let me
Pedro's got the
before you
process.
get there, because I am curious to hear that entire process, honestly, because I just told you my fail, but we can go through how I clean. Hey guys, it's not a torch. Use a heat gun. That's the key. I was just really impatient. But so I am curious to know how you guys, you know, honestly deep clean them. But before we get there, I'm curious to know both, you know, everyone's opinion on. You said every 2 or 3 days, or every day if you're really on top of it, you know. But maybe it's every, like, how many times you're smoking, right? Because I think about that bong that we've been hitting, man. It's like I should be cleaning this every time I hit it. It's just it gets wild, dude.
The other thought and the bigger concern is microbial growth, you know, and cleanliness of the water, you know. So regardless of how often you're using it, it's still sitting there for 36 hours or 48, however many hours it's still sitting there. You know, growth, microbial growth in water is, what is it, like 8 hours, 12 hours, something. It's ridiculously quick. You know, so if we're walking down that path, fucking, you know, every couple of hours,
Then I'm nasty.
you know. And maybe that's where solventless bacon vape is onto something. He just hits it dry all the time and never has to fucking worry about the water, you know. But
Everything's in there is burnt, so you know,
so to go down the path of the way I clean it, and I'll go into more detail if we want it. But essentially I'll clean the rig. First of all, distilled water only. Period. End of story. Just period. So I'll clean the rig completely of all the water, just empty all the water out of the rig, and then I'll fill it with distilled alcohol, 99% alcohol, ISO. Always 99%. Don't fucking use 91. Don't use 70. Always 99. If you use anything less, you're gonna have cloudy glass. I'll take my rig and I'll fill it up as much alcohol as it'll take, literally to the top of the joint. Fill it up with alcohol. A lot of times, because I'm rotating rigs, I'll let the rig sit in there for overnight, ideally, sometimes 2, 3, 4 days. But I let it sit in there overnight to allow all of that reclaim and oil and whatnot that Fregrowli likes to burn off the bottom of his rig. I allow it to just dissolve into the alcohol, and then after a day, I will empty that alcohol, and I'll empty it into a dirty alcohol container, because this whole other story. We'll take our dirty alcohol and we use a distiller, and we reclaim all of our alcohol. I am high as fuck.
Do you use a rotovap or
No, we use just a simple little distiller that Dizzy bought off fucking Amazon, $100 distiller, and we distill and reuse our isopropyl alcohol. So anyway, so take the alcohol, the dirty alcohol, dump it
that's
into
my
a
dad.
dirty alcohol container. Put more alcohol into it, rinse it again, put that alcohol back into the dirty alcohol container. Put don't rinse it. Put soap, dish soap in it. Fill it with water. Shake the shit out of it. Empty that out and rinse completely the soap out of the rig. Once the soap is out of the rig, just completely rinse the rig. And at this point in time, we're using tap water. After we've got all of the soap out of the rig, we will then rinse the rig with distilled water. From there, we will make sure that we get all of the distilled water out. I mean, all of it as much as possible. That is rigorously, shaking the shit out of it to literally get all of the water out of it as you can. Once you get all of the distilled water out of it, you'll put some more 99% alcohol in there, and that will soak up the water in the rig, and then you dump that back out. You can dump that back into your dirty alcohol container again. You'll leave that little bit of alcohol in there, and that little bit of alcohol will evaporate, and because it has absorbed the water, it'll evaporate most of the water as well, and you'll have a clean rig at the end. Period. It's a very long process. Very long process, which is why some of the rigs sit in there for 3 or 4 days, because I'm like, fuck.
What do you find the soap helps? Just like any like antibacterial? Is it like antibacterial soap or?
It's dish soap.
It just grabs the last bits of alcohol.
Just grabs the last bits of alcohol. Make sure that the glass,
the dirty alcohol.
itself,
Okay.
Make sure that the glass itself stays clean, because even though it's 99%, it can still leave a little bit of a film.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Is like I've never found a perfect way, really. Clearly, I'm still working on it to clean glass. In my, we're talking my, $80 art pieces over here, and but I've got a lot of access to chemicals, for cleaning things, and it's whether it's 99% isopropanol or it's 99.98% lab grade ethanol or it's straight delemoning,
I'll bet you your ethanol would probably work great,
dude. That is probably the best thing, and it will not leave streaks, and that's the one thing I find that it's better over the ISO, other than the smell, honestly. Like is it just doesn't leave any of those streaks, and it does break it down a little bit quicker. Now delemoning will break down a concentrated hash, form or ball or something, a lot quicker than even ethanol will, but you got to clean that out even more aggressively than you would just like a ethanol.
I've never played with delemoning at all.
Yeah, and what I use that for primarily is cleaning my stainless steel, and that's because we're just talking, closed loop runs gets very dirty, or can get very dirty, fats and lipids sticking to the sides of things and making it very hard to clean it out or whatever. Or if you're doing, distilling solvent, and you want to make sure everything's, all that mystery solvent or whatever is cleaned out. It's worth it for me to pay a little bit more just to have, honestly, the ease of the workflow is what it is. But for cleaning dab rigs and glass, ethanol seems to work best for me. But I've heard someone told me recently that this is maybe like a playing telephone or whatever, because I never actually looked it up myself. Someone told me that, especially here in Michigan with how high our humidity is, the second you open an alcohol or an ethanol or something that's like very super high, 99% plus, the second you open it in high humidity, it essentially changes the entire structure of it or whatever, like the bottle. And they were trying to tell me that the alcohol content drops pretty quickly on it.
Like it'll drop to 95 the minute you open it or something.
I think they were saying way more. Well, yeah, maybe 95 the second you open it, but 70% if you have it open for a half hour or something like that. Now we all see how quickly, ISO or ethanol will dissolve in just like a dish or something. In a hot room, especially, it will go very quickly. But I had a hard time believing it was changing that aggressively. So I kind of wanted to know your guys' opinion on that. And because I'm like, well, dude, wouldn't I see like the levels in my jug go down or something? You know, like, are we swapping that much alcohol out for water in the air? Like,
that's what I'm getting. Like, if you were talking about changing, you know, the 30% or 40%, the amount of actual moisture that the alcohol would have to consume would have to, you know, no, dude, there's
That's
just
a lot.
yeah,
seems
I
like a
don't believe
lot.
there's any-
Maybe an exaggeration, you know. So I don't know what the percentage is, but I get it. I get the idea of that. You know, that's why there's lids on them. There's different, you don't just leave it open all day.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. It didn't seem
Yeah, that'd have to
plausible.
be long-term exposure to 100% humidity, and you're not going to pull in that much out of the air.
leaving the fucking lid off the alcohol container, though, is the bane of my existence.
I was just gonna say.
Walk by and smell it.
Yeah.
No, I just come back in and there's fucking half
And
full.
I'm like, dude, you have to.
Oh, no.
God damn it. Every fucking time. What are you you said what you're smoking on? What buddies, what are you smoking on there?
Dolce Cold Cure.
Cold cure batter. Yeah.
Hash rosin.
There you go.
From the dispensary.
It is what it is.
Not mine. Not mine yet.
I have got some of my critical.
I did just did my vacuum test with the new setup for the freeze dryer.
Mm-hmm.
Was under 500 within 6 minutes.
Oh, good.
So
Good deal.
yeah,
Ready to roll.
new hose, everything worked good.
Say that again. I missed the numbers on that.
Under 500 millitor. Is that how you say it?
mTOR. I always call it just mTOR
mTOR.
because I don't really know what it is.
Yeah, mTOR. Under 500 in under 6 minutes.
Okay.
So
Which is
right down
pretty
to
quick.
vacuum, right? I
Mhm.
can get lower. Now, my original photos show I was down to like 170, but I didn't let it run. So I need to let it run for 20 minutes and see where it ends up.
Yeah, I don't remember what my lowest one was. I looked it up at one point in time, but
Under
Sometimes
500
it's-
is really all you
yes, exactly. Sometimes it just gets redundant.
Yeah.
It's like, why do I need to know that number? You know.
need. As long as it's freeze drying, that's what matters.
And Fregrowli, what are you processing now?
Almost entirely, like nearly 100% fresh frozen.
Okay.
And I'm using a modified best value vax closed loop system to do it, utilizing a tri-blend of hydrocarbons, including N-butane, isobutane, and propane.
Okay.
And my entire focus is on bringing the essence of the live plant that we as growers get to experience on or just before the day of harvest, and put it in the dab rig of the consumer. And the only and best way I can find to do that so far is through a super cold closed loop system process, by harvesting in a slightly but not really all that particular way, just trying to remove the potential after harvest for oxidation or burning off of any terps. So we want to vac seal and freeze it, essentially, which is what that means, without compressing it. I will add that caveat in there, and just keep it there until we're ready to process it, and just try to keep it, those terps maintained until we can get it into, the final form, I guess, if you will. And so there's a lot of processing that goes into that as well. And so temperatures, in my opinion, need to be considered there, as well. But yeah, I mean, for me, that's my forte. My focus is hydrocarbon extraction with a focus on live resin, terpene retention, whatever you want to call it. I'm still doing it, man. That's been my focus for a long time.
I think temperature is probably one of the biggest components that there is. One of the biggest variables that there is.
That's the like commonality between the two. We're both about cold, right?
Sure.
I mean, we only go with ours to warmth once we press. Everything else, it's just that's
And then
the same thing. Retaining terpenes.
Well,
And
and
then
you guys, real quick, you guys operate
Yeah.
in cold rooms, which we don't even really necessarily have to invest in. We just have to keep
Right.
the equipment cold because it's in a contained vessel. The whole room you guys are operating in is a chilled room, you know, which is
Yeah.
kind of cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it is definitely cool.
Yeah, it sounds fun until you're freezing your balls
the
off
scarf.
after
Yeah, until about the 6th or 7th hour, it's fucking
Yep.
it's
Yeah.
great.
moving around, ain't cutting it anymore. And
On the note of the fresh frozen, I've been walking down this because I do my own processing here at home, and then we do the commercial processing, for Eden up in Parachute. But we've tried to, because of harvesting, we've tried to focus on fresh frozen, right? Because you harvest the plant, bucket off, you vac seal it, you freeze it, done. Half drying or even drying and then bucking to process just procedurally doesn't work on a commercial scale. It's very, very tough, labor intensive, beyond belief. So I took critical kush, my cut of critical kush, and we took it to Eden. And sorry about that here. We took it to Eden because I wanted everybody else to be able to experience that critical kush as well. I know it's whatever MED, blah 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 blah. Screw you. I wanted everybody to be able to try the critical kush. So we got critical kush and we processed it fresh, fresh frozen material, into ice water hash and rosin, and it was ass. The percentages of which it dumped was horrible. The yield was just ridiculously horrible. The hash, the rosin that resulted from the hash was dark and just undesirable. I mean, just a horrible fail. Kind of embarrassing to me a little bit because, I've been hyping up and I've talked about this critical kush for fucking years, and then I grew some here. Of course, we're always growing critical kush. We grew some here. We processed it just recently, and I mean, it came out just blonde and just wet, terpy as all can be. But the biggest difference in the processing is I do a half dry, and I think I've even been talking about this since the days of the round table. I do a half dry with critical kush. I'll wait until the outside of the bud is just starting to get just a little bit crispy, crunchy, and I'll buck it, put it in the freezer, and then let it freeze for at least 24 hours, and then process it. And when I do that half dry, the yield is off the charts, and the resulting rosin is gorgeous, So
correct
it's
me if I'm
interesting.
wrong. I'm guessing here, but my guess would be that, and I just brought this up a week and a half ago, I think, which is why this maybe in part this whole thing started. Was that so I've tried it before to do it in a fresh frozen. Well, not I guess technically not fresh frozen, like a half dried closed loop system, and to see how it works for me. Because I had heard that people that were doing bubble hash and rosin were kind of trying it that way. And I mentioned that, I brought that up, and I'm like, I don't know if that's, I guess if you're keeping it at the right temperature, maybe you're maintaining terps, but maybe there's a potential for loss there, because technically you are harvesting it at that point or whatever. But I think the big thing for what you're saying in terms of returns is, and I'd be curious to know if you got it under a microscope, is what do those heads look like at harvest day versus day, 3, 4, whatever it is of the dry? Because I imagine if just the outside is getting brittle, then those heads are just getting brittle enough that they're washing off a lot better. Now, to my understanding, a lot of it is that makes a poor washer is like the greasiness, like a clementine or a lime skunk or something like that. But I don't know if that's the case for what you're talking here. I think it's either the capability of the heads to fall off, or maybe the size of them itself. I don't know which it is, or maybe you can expand more. You're muted.
Muted, Pedro.
Your mic is muted, Pedro.
Sorry, I heard that. It's pretty simply, you're allowing the
You don't have to yell,
trichome
you're not muted
stalks.
anymore.
God, you're allowing the trichome stalks to be more brittle and allow them to drop the heads quicker, easier.
Do you know if they're changing at all? Like, did you see like, you know, in the bags, was there a difference in volume you're getting in the, you know, different levels, I guess? If we're in like a fresh frozen versus that, you know, couple day
No,
dry?
there's a negligible reduction in the size of the heads themselves, which is what you're ultimately asking. There is, if you let them go too far, there is a, I don't know the word to use for it, but there's a wrinkliness that happens with the exterior of the head.
It goes from a grape to a raisin.
Just a little bit. Yeah, it starts going
Yeah.
from a real nice plump, you know, raisin to just a little wilted, you know, to got a little bit of wrinkles to it. And at that point in time, you went 12 to 24 hours too far, you know. But you know, the other thing that we've talked about a lot in the solventless community is whether or not there is a slight maturation of terpenes and whether or not that is beneficial or not. Do we want the consumer to experience what we are experiencing at harvest, or do we want them to experience a ripened version of what we harvest?
Yes and no. And in terms of my extracts and what I'm doing, no, I don't want you to experience a ripened version, because I do think that the maturation that you're talking about is technically also a degradation from my point of view. Now, if it comes to flour or something like that, yeah, I don't want fresh frozen. Like I want that matured and ripened flour, because there is a way to do that smokes much better than, you know, if you didn't do it right, or if it's been around too long. Like I think there's a certain time frame on it too. But with a concentrated form, you can almost kind of freeze it in time too. There's other benefits there. But yeah, no, in my opinion, I'm trying to bring you, like I said, that essence of the plant on the day of harvest, or the, you know, a couple days before or whatever. Versus, yeah, there's other medicines and products you can bring to them that have that maturation period. And it could be a solventless form, it could be a hydrocarbon form. You know, just for me though, what I'm doing, I want the essence of that plant at the day of harvest, because to me that's like the most beautiful and most tasty thing.
You know, and we process these different ways. You know, cultivating and harvesting is as a process as well. We process these different ways so people can experience it their own preferred way, right? Everybody has a preference, you know. Some people like to smoke it, some people like to eat it, some people like to rub it on their skin. You know, we all have a preference, you know. So
some people super prefer like fresh press.
Yeah, absolutely.
Versus like,
some people prefer us to stop, you know, at hash. Some people prefer to stop at rosin. Some people prefer to let them go all the way to jams, or you know, the post processing,
or throw it in a disposable.
I saw you just light a butt on fire.
When they tell me that they're going to take my rosin and throw it into carts at work, I just have to just go outside and take a break and cry.
Why? I want to know why.
Because it's a heating process, and whenever you're going to introduce heat, you're going to degrade the fucking terpenes. And
I'm so glad we're on the same page with that, Pedro.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just it is what it is. It's just heat and fucking terpenes don't mix. You're gonna degrade them. Period. And now keeping them
what it could have been.
Keeping them closed in a closed loop, you know, in a closed container. Yes, but you're still off gassing them. In my mind, it's an adulteration of the fucking product, and it's
Well, so with my live resin terp carts that admittedly I'm still working on and have been working on for probably a year and a half at least now, maybe more. And I progressed through the, you know, the 510s, the V fires. I'm working on disposables, trying different styles and all this. I will say one of the things one of the parts involved with putting my concentrate in a disposable even is that actually there really isn't a heating process involved, and it's never actually getting warmer than it does, or maybe just a little bit warmer than it does within the closed loop system itself. Now most of that process is like negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit or lower, but there's a point of recovery at which, in my scenario now, the vessel that the concentrate is in after it's been extracted sits in a hot water bath of about 90 degrees. Now, the liquid form of concentrate inside there that is off gassing the solvents, that's probably like 15 degrees or something like that, maybe like 20 degrees, because the boiling points of butane and propane are so low that the temperatures never actually get that high unless you were to over recovery or like get it down. I mean, you could inside that vessel get it to 90 degrees, but you would have to be extracting pretty much all of or most of that solvent out already, and it would make post-processing a little bit more difficult. Go ahead. You look like you're about to ask a question.
No, I'm very high. I'm
Okay.
Yeah, I'm processing that. I'm just
I
it's
was
taking
kinda
a minute
too,
to
So the whole point being is
A lot of big words.
from the time it gets harvested to the time it gets in the cart, it never gets over 89, 90 degrees. And
How long is it at 89, 90 degrees?
anywhere from a couple days to a few weeks.
That's a long time.
Right. And
That's a very long time. Now,
I know.
when we heat rosin, you know, without going into too much detail and whatnot, when we heat rosin for carts, it's at a substantially higher temperature than that, you know, 200-ish degrees, we'll say, for a matter of 12, 18 hours at the most. You know, so it's considerably less time, but considerably
higher temperature. Right.
So,
And so I will say that is the maximum I will go. The minimum I go is about 70. And I do this all in an oven, which hasn't been hooked up to a vacuum pump in like 5-6 years or something, but it's my best way of having a controlled, sealed environment that is maintained temperature wise, like very accurately. And so, yeah, typically it's around 75 degrees or so, but you know, if I'm trying to crash out quickly or speed up that process, I might kick it up for a certain amount of time, and you will see results much quicker that way in terms of the THCA crashing out, because that ultimately is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to take out as much of that solid THCA that has been crystallized as possible at a low temp while still maintaining those terpenes and THC and other cannabinoids in a liquid form. I'm just trying to get it viscous and stable enough to get in a cart without it crashing out continually in this cart and become a solid form.
chunk.
And just becoming a pain in the
Clogging.
butt. So yeah, exactly. So which does happen, right? And part of the process is, or part of the, you know, the facts are you're heating this thing up, right? And so like using the right cartridge and not having that oil just constantly being heated up around it, like, or leaving it in your car in Michigan during the summer when it's like 120 degrees in your console, you know, like those things will tend to, speed up that process.
And then we, you know, we're talking all these details on heat, time, temperature, blah, blah, blah. Change cultivars.
Right.
The whole fucking thing changes.
That's
Wipe your slate clean. Start over. You know, it's like,
What's the right process for this one?
That's why I said it a couple of days to a few weeks, you know, because that sweet pig pie I grew back in the day. I remember one day I processed it, put it in the oven, came back the next morning, and there was like 1.5 inches of THC already crashed out at the bottom of this jar. I'm like, I guess she's ready, you know, versus like a Durban poison or something with these like super high terpene contents, which are a solvent in and of themselves. You'd think that would maybe help this process, but apparently it doesn't, from my experience. So these kind of more hazy varieties with these terpinolene and other like just a higher volume of terpenes in general, they tend to take a lot longer, but they also produce a lot clearer diamonds. And I think that's part of those solvents, like being this like different form of creating them, you know? So it's, yeah, there's so many variables. It's like, it's kind of like growing. It's like choose a philosophy and run with it. You're probably going to be successful, you know?
Exactly. And if you keep trying to go too far, you're going to keep adding more variables, you know,
Yeah, that's
which is
true, man.
fine. And people like to do this, you know, and I'm referring to people like Rackham's, you know, and making these jams and these diamonds and whatnot. You know, while they're great and people love them and there is the absolute market for them, you're increasing the amount of variables substantially, you know.
That's a good question. You guys have a preferred consistency of the type of dab? Because most of what I do is like generally a sauce, which like, you know, maybe diamonds like we're talking about or something like that. And then you know, the terps. Sometimes they're real thick, you know, sometimes real thin, sometimes there's a lot of terps, sometimes there's not. It just depends on the cultivar itself. Or maybe I'm just whipping it all into a batter, trying to keep it consistent and, you know, uniform across the jar. Some people really have a preference with that, and from what I see, it's just the ease of dab. It's more of a convenience thing. Like, how easy is this to pick up on the nail? The other side of it is, ooh, how pretty is this? Like, look at how pretty this is, you know? Like,
Yeah, for me, like a creamy butter is the best because I can get a nice big slab of it on my fat tool. You know?
I like the cold cure that's more solidified and easy to dab.
To me, there is too creamy. There is a too creaminess. You know, I do like it to be a soft dab. I don't like crunchy. I don't like crumble.
Right.
You know,
The crumbly
and I'm not
gets annoying.
Yeah, and I'm not a big fan of jams and post processed consistencies like that, mostly because of the introduction of heat that has taken place. So yeah, a cold cure, and if you can, which I believe is much more rare than the community will admit, a true cold cure is very hard to find, and a true cold cure is even harder to find. So a true cold cure is refrigerated, right? You're talking about your refrigerated temperatures 50, 55. As mine is sitting over here open. 55, you know, that 40, 45 degree, you know, not your freezing temperatures, you know, and to let it sit there until it butters up. That's your cold cure. I guess,
how long does that take usually? Cultivar dependent, I know, but
Yeah,
like give me a median or something like that.
In the refrigerator, 2 weeks to 2 months.
Okay, so it's a slow process.
Oh yeah, very slow process.
Okay.
Again, dependent on temperature, primarily dependent on temperature and whether or not it's sealed is a big variable as well. And then I guess if we're going to take it one step further, I know it sounds ridiculous, but true cold cure, you know, is i.e. vacuum sealing it and putting it in the freezer fresh and waiting for it to butter, which takes a long time, can take up to like a year or more.
Damn.
Well, but I like where you're going with this because again, vac sealing removes the chance of oxidation, which is, I mean, if you guys have ever seen a piece of meat that you left in the fridge too long, say you got a steak, right? And all of a sudden it's a little brown on the outside, you're like, ah, crap. And then you cut it open and it's all beautiful pink and red on the inside still. That's just oxidation. That's aging the meat on the outside layer. It's same thing happens on the top layer of your jar. Same things happen to cannabis flower itself. Apples, like pick it. Oxygen actually really matures things pretty quickly. Yeah. Guacamole. And that's guacamole's getting brown. You know, that's oxidation. So that's one of the things to really avoid if you're trying to store a product or especially just preserve a product. Especially when it comes to cannabis, whether it's concentrate or any other form, really. The other part of it is keeping it cold. So I really like where you're going with this on the freezing temperatures, because if you got a deep freezer, that's probably the best way to do it. If all you got is your freezer and under your fridge or whatever, like, or next to your fridge, they all different designs nowadays. Use that. That's just fine too. I've kept concentrates for over 3 years in a vac sealed bag, but just in the bottom of my regular freezer, and had no problems with them. They're just like day one when I opened them. But But usually with those two things in consideration, you're kind of avoiding any changes of consistency or things like that. So I'm wondering what process is actually taking place in this, up to or over a year of essentially freezing this. I mean, what does it look like going in? What does it look like coming out? This true cold cure.
Sorry if I can hit the button and not hit the button. What it looks like going in is a true fresh press. I mean, the glassy fresh press, that everybody knows.
Super sticky.
and what it looks like coming out is your buttered state. And the only thing that I can assume is that the oxygen nitrogen mix that is introduced upon the time you're jarring is enough to convert it, but it obviously takes longer because you don't have, there's not the supply of it is obviously very restricted.
Heat excites the molecules, so it makes everything happen faster.
And the whole jar uniformly changes, or do you see it kind of start from the top and go from?
That's the kind of cool thing is and that's how I've found out about this, right? You make mistakes. You open a jar too soon, and what does it look like? You open a jar too soon, and it's really kind of cool because it's got this candy coating, to it, and sometimes it's most of the times that I've had it, it's had this candy coating, and it's actually kind of oxidized, so to speak, buttered from the inside out, from the most part that I've seen. Sometimes it'll be the opposite, but for the most part, it has this candy coating on the outside, and then kind of oxidizes from the inside out, which is really
like a freaking creme brulee, dude.
Yeah, now that I say it, it's actually a little interesting that it does from the inside out, but it does generally. So,
and so I'm wondering what exactly is taking place there, because I'm wondering if you couldn't just do the same thing, but much quicker by maybe whipping it, but under like subcritical temps or something,
Oh.
Because it sounds like it's
everything to start that process, kick it off.
Yeah, it sounds like it's just a real slow oxidation process, or some sort of maturing process here. But you're just slowing it down as much as possible until you get to that perfect consistency. I'm wondering if you could just whip it I don't know. You'd have to, again, in a cold room, like within a deep freezer. I don't know. You'd have to do it super cold, but to gain the same results, and still achieve that kind of super cold cure or whatever. But is it just initiating the process, or would you actually finish it?
The other variable that I neglected to bring up is how much, the volume in what you have, and I would say to a lesser extent, just because of it's weird to store it in other ways, but the if you store it in a big fat jar, it's going to be different than storing it in a pizza like shape, which I know we wouldn't necessarily do that, but it doesn't change the fact that it would be different. So the different shape of your container, i.e. how fat it is, or how thick it is, how much
surface area you're exposing your concentrate to,
is to an extent is a variable. It is definitely
100%. And I would say how much you're filling that jar, right? Because if you have 90% atmosphere in there and 10% concentrate or whatever, it's probably going to go a lot quicker that way too. I really think what it is just a very slowed down maturation or oxidation process or whatever. That's why I'm wondering if there's a hack to this. We couldn't just speed this up.
I think there very well is ultimately, and I think we will probably most likely will get to that place where it'll be more apparent what that hack is. But I absolutely do think that you're correct in the airspace, because if we found before that, obviously if you have, if you only fill a jar halfway or a quarter way, you've introduced too much oxygen into the jar, and the oxidation is going to happen at a much quicker rate, and it's going to be much more substantial as compared to if you have a jar where you fill it 90% full.
Dude, all these jars I've seen are so full. These mason jars of rosin, right? They're so full.
And I think that there's somewhere in between. That's the perfect place. And unfortunately, I think that there's too many variables there as well.
Yeah.
What terpenes are there, and what is the concentration of the terpenes, the percentage of the terpenes that are in the jar being released. Like, there's just too many goddamn variables to
Right.
nail something down. And then if we do nail it down to critical kush, right? We've got a critical kush nailed down. We need 75 fucking percent filled, blah, 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 blah. All these other variables are out. But next harvest is different.
Right.
Right.
Just a little fucking different.
I learned from your mistakes to never overfill a jar. I've seen you open too many jars and seen what happens.
Yeah.
So I would rather underfill than ever come close to overfill.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
That's, and it's funny because I'm kind of in a different boat with, having hydrocarbons left in my solution. I might be jarring it up with some of that in there to aid in my post-processing efforts, because it's going to provide a little bit of pressure for me. Not much, but just a little tiny bit. And that's kind of one of the ways I slow down my process, is by having a little bit more solvent in there, because the process isn't done until there's enough solvent out. I'm not serving up, dirty dabs or whatever you want to call them. So,
sure.
Dirty.
Yeah. So, and until that process is completed, I can't really finish it, so to speak. So, but it is one of the ways I slow it down. And it's one of the ways, by leaving an air gap, I'm actually able to provide a little bit more of a pressure. So the cubic space for me is a big part, right? Like volume, because the bigger the vessel I have in terms of collection vessel, the deeper of a vacuum I can pull. So, say all things equal, I've got a 12-inch tall vessel. If it is 6 inches wide versus 12 inches wide, in diameter, it's perfectly circular.
Mm-hmm.
That's not double the volume. It's like, 3.14 or whatever pi, like something to do with pi or something, somewhere in that range,
exactly.
It's like significantly more. And so, especially when we're talking vacuums, like that means I have a lot of assistance just from atmosphere in terms of moving my process along, because it is all contained in this closed loop system, right?
Sure.
Right.
So whether it's temperature, atmosphere, or or a manual vacuum or something like that, I have to move this process along eventually. And that is one of the kind of hacks, if you will, to move it along. But when it comes to, kind of containing it at the end, there's not really, like, I can kind of have plenty of space in there, because it's not really going to be oxygen. It's going to be off gas solvent for the most part.
The funny thing that I just realized is, along my path of processing, I try to close my loop as quickly as possible. When I'm harvesting, I try to get it into a vacuum sealed bag as quickly as possible. When after I wash it, I try to get it to the freeze dryer as soon as possible. After I bag it and put it into my rosin bags, I try to put it in a sealed bag as quickly as possible. When I press the rosin, I try to seal the jar as quickly as possible. So I'm trying to close my loop as quickly as possible as well. But I think we've touched on it, multiple times. It's that oxidation, it's that temperature, along the way.
And each step has its own temperature set too,
Yeah.
Washing temperature versus pressing temperature. Your room temps are always different. So.
Right. And Pedro, I will say that's what sets you apart from most of the rest, is the fact that you are paying that close of attention to those details. Because, I know most commercial facilities, it's just sitting out on a table, until it's ready to go to the next step. It's not like they're, taking that close of care. And some of that is scalability, you know what I mean, or whatever. But that's kind of what it takes to be that craft level, and have that kind of grade.
I've unfortunately had face-to-face fights over storage of material, and it's gotten to the same you know, when we go to carts, you know, I have to turn my fucking head. I'm like, whatever, you go ahead and do whatever you're going to do with it, you know. But my goddamn batter, it fucking stays out of the fucking light and it stays cold, and you do not open that fucking jar until I'm okay with it, you know. And one thing I wanted to say before that it just completely kind of off base a little bit. Your jars, when they're cold and you pull them out of the refrigerator or your freezer, let them come to room temperature before you open them, or you're introducing moisture in the form of condensation, which is going to introduce mold and the whole fucking list of problems.
Wait, you don't like your dab splashing back at you and sizzling on the nail? Dude, I've done that.
They dance on their own without a pearl. It's great.
Dude, I've done that way too many times. And like I mentioned earlier in this show, pulling those things out of the freezer and be like, "Ooh, I'm so excited to try these 3-year-old dabs." So
Yeah, we've all done it, of course, right?
I'll be right back.
Oh, that's funny.
I gotta take another dab here. I'm gonna dab some. What am I gonna dab? Some grape pie this time, I guess.
I've got one more in me, I think.
Oh, I probably got 10 more in me, but it's
Well,
how many I'm willing to go. Ooh, this stuff.
I do have to sleep at some point.
This stuff is like warm room temp butter. That's what this consistency is. Very room temp, like 80 degrees room temp. I don't know if it'll, you know, it never wants to focus, but
Oh, there it goes. That's good. Pretty.
I haven't tried very much of this
It looked like
grape
a hand
pie.
like this in the bottom when you scraped it.
Look like what?
It looked like a hand like this.
Oh, did it?
Mm-hmm.
Mute. I'll be right.
Buddy, jealous of the new kitty.
Mm-hmm. He's like, "Excuse me,
Vegas
you
dabs.
still love me, right?"
Dude, I recommend fucking vacuum sealing it and put some in the freezer right now.
I was looking at photos earlier and saw your side by side of, I don't remember what was on the left, but Tropsy was on the right, comparing the colors of the hash. Such an awesome photo. Lock some up for later. I'll have to show you pictures later, Pedro, of the new vacuum setup. It has an air filter now on the vacuum side for releasing the pressure to the freeze dryer. So you're not pulling air back through the drain valve. You're muted. Sorry. Muted.
Screw yourself. Have you
I
seen
saw
this?
you talking. I'm just not. I'm too high to read lips, man. Sorry.
Have you seen this collection of terpenes from the wastewater from the freeze dryer?
What?
No.
Oh, you got a cold trap?
No. So, Low Temp has a video on their website explaining it all. I have not done it myself, but I can see a big application for it.
I did see that.
On this process,
You can smell it. I mean, that little bit of water you get, it's. I mean, it's. I don't know how to describe it.
I knew that would excite for grilling.
Yeah, because dude, we've been talking about this literally since probably the GrowTube days, because that was a big part of it. It's like, no, water actually is a solvent. As much as we don't like to call it a solvent, I know it's still solventless. I'm agreeing with that, but water is scientifically, like speaking, that is a solvent. So
sure,
it's going to bring some of those other things along. And if we really want to dig into the details, yeah, let's collect those terps. And I know people have been working on ways to do that for a long time. I think it's just one of those processes that, yeah, you're just getting such a minimal amount that it's like, is it really worth it? But in my opinion, yeah, it kind of is. So I'm aware of the cold trap method. What is the way that you're talking about?
I wish I could remember the exact processing. Do you remember it, Budsy?
I don't either. Actually, we can bring it up.
I was gonna say, can we pull it up and screen share? Because I know you can like pin one screen or whatever.
And yes, I know the amount that you're getting is in the realm of quarter ounces. You know, I mean, very, very minimal amount.
Well, yeah, I've only heard like 5 milliliters or less.
Yeah, I mean, it's like extremely small amount.
But do you know what you could do with that? You know what I'm
saying? Oh my god, that's the thing, is how the concentration of it is just ridiculous, dude. Like the people think like that's not a big amount, but you know, look at gold. You know, when you look at how small gold can be and how you know, valuable it can be. You know, things don't have to be things don't have to be big to be valuable.
You tell him, Pedro.
Sorry, somebody's got to fight for us.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder what the concentration of that would be if it is like a 100% type of terpene. You know what I mean? That you're
right.
You know, if there's other, like, what kind of other cannabinoids are in there? Oh, dude,
you know,
it's
and what terpenes are more soluble in water. You know,
I think we're I'm gonna screw these terms up if I can even remember them. There's monoterpenes and sesquiterpenes, or how do you say it? Something like that. I know there's 2 like basic types of terpenes, and even just that might determine their solubility, you know, in water versus fats and other things. So there we go.
You know, I think one of the biggest things that
we might have to like mute this and
there we go.
Just so we don't get pulled. Yeah, just play it.
Put a minute and a half. Cool.
Put closed captions on it.
Short one. Oh yeah.
I just don't want to get pulled for you know, the audio or whatever. It's happening to us.
They seem to have a decent amount there.
Small vial, 1 liter flask, large mason jar, 25 micron rosin bag, small rubber band, large airtight jar,
micron now,
10 milliliter glass pipette, and a food grade funnel. I'd use a stainless steel funnel.
I would agree.
And I don't know if the rubber band's
highly volatile.
Yeah, man. I mean, even food grade is not terpene grade. So I should probably be reading this. Let's see. Can you rewind it like 20 seconds? Yeah.
It was interesting to me that they make sure to fill it into the neck and whatnot. Like there's just a very specific process.
So it defrosts. Just collect out everything from the defrost cycle.
Which is just all the water, you're saying. Collect all the water from your wash cycle. Which
the ice,
I want to add, if
builds up on the outside, and
if you're not doing this, guys, whatever we're about to say about collecting these terpenes, just throw it in your bath, please, and take a bath in this water. Like
it is really good water. I've drank it before. It's really good to drink.
Yeah,
you know?
Why not, dude? It seems like I mean, as long as
I tasted the first batch, it smelled too damn good.
It does. It seems very wasteful to throw it away.
And Skittles water smells like crack.
Oh my gosh.
I can imagine, dude. I can imagine.
So good.
Okay, so we've collected all the water from the wash. Now we're pouring it into pouring the contents into a flask.
Now, let me really quick add to this. Push pause real quick. So they make sure to fill into the neck of the flask. This can be, we can modify this or affect this greatly by how much water we leave in the hash when we put it in the freeze dryer. Like we can we can fluctuate how much water we get by putting dry water or dry hash into the freeze dry. We won't get as much liquid out because there's not as much liquid going in. You know, I think that's obvious, but perhaps not. So
anyway, that does make sense. Yeah, I mean, water weight, 80% of it, you know, from fresh frozen. So there you go. I was just gonna say, I know you got that crazy widescreen monitor. Yeah, it's that widescreen monitor. I do the same thing because I have next to me is my widescreen is tilted vertically, you know, so every time I share my screen, it looks like a friggin' cell phone image or something.
All vertical.
Yeah.
All right. So
So we're filling it up to the neck. Put it in the fridge for a few hours.
And remove from fridge. Damn, now I can't see that.
When the separations
Separation
are
is
visible. Separation of
So, yeah,
what?
it's gonna
Water
separate.
and...
That's not, yeah, water and the terpenes.
Oh yeah, there it is. Look at
Yep,
that,
yep,
dude.
yep.
Wow, just the tiniest little amount.
This is where they're going to use the pipette.
Yeah, to siphon it off.
Uh-huh.
Ooh, that looked not very successful.
It didn't look very successful, did it? Oh,
Stuck it too
Oh,
deep.
okay. So
they're cleaning it. They cleaned it at the.
Yeah, he-
Okay.
pulled it
They
in and
let
then
it-
pushed
yeah.
it back out.
For anybody that's just listening by chance and not watching, they're moving so fast with this. It really is like a 1.5 minute video, and it's we're having a hard time even reading it as fast as they're playing it. So
agreed.
you can go ahead and look it up, how to capture solventless terpenes from your freeze dryer.
I'll paste the link here.
There you go. So they're now dispensing it into a jar, airtight jar.
Freezer for a few hours then.
This is probably going to leave the.
So yeah,
This
that's
is
gonna
going
make
to-
all the lipids and shit solid, and you'll be able to just pour off everything else. I would
Pour off
assume.
the fucking terpenes. Yep.
Yeah, because it's wild, dude. Terpenes are just like, without the THC in them, like, or reducing the amount of THC in your concentrate. I should just say, not even this. I don't even want to call it just terpenes. Like, I'm thinking from a hydrocarbon extract, and this might actually be a higher concentrate of terpenes. I'm not sure in the terms of water, like what it's bringing along in terms of
gotta be a higher
terpene to cannabinoid
concentration.
ratio. I have no idea, dude. But in terms of what's left over on my end, like, after I've crashed out the THCA, which removes, I don't know, we'll call 50% of the THCA, something like that. It's so viscous often, you know, but it can continually crash out. But I guess I'm also coming out with like pretty much no fats or lipids in the first place because of the -40 temperature that I'm operating at.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So it says the terps will float. That's same thing with in my scenario.
Man, if I was to add this back into some rosin.
So you can put the ice. The next video shows how to add it back into your rosin.
You know, and then there's a whole another world, a whole other avenue we can walk down regarding dabbing and the level of terpenes and
You're right.
the lung agitation, you know, and temperature of dabbing under those scenarios. So
yeah, and actually,
that's a whole other conversation,
dude. I agree. Yeah, this could be a 100-parter, at least. And I would want, before I forget, it's already slipping. Oh, too many tabs.
Right?
Never mind.
I know,
Keep going.
Well,
Oh yeah. So before I forget again, the amount. Say we're getting 5 milliliters of terpenes from this water extraction or whatever we're doing, this secondary extraction of our water. I want to know what percentage that represents of the overall concentrate, because say we're losing 0.5%. I mean, I don't know what it is, but a 1/10 of 1% or something like that. I'd be very curious to know.
You want to know what the freeze drying process is degrading?
Yeah. How much is it stealing? Right. Yeah.
How much is it
No, not the
done?
freeze drying process, the actual washing process.
Oh,
yeah, because the terpenes are in the water.
I guess
So-
the terpenes would be in the water.
Yeah,
So.
I know we're talking
Yeah,
about freeze
good
drying
call.
here, but it's in the water
call.
too. So
Yeah,
I
good
think
call.
that's
No,
like that's
I mean,
the
what
cold
you're
trap
saying
method I
makes
was talking about.
sense.
No, that makes absolute sense.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of different points.
I don't like where you're going with this, but yeah, Matt,
Yeah, right.
Damn it. You're adding work to the flow.
Yeah, that's what I meant with the cold trap. I know there's a way to do that in the water part of it. And I know there's a way to cold trap your vacuum ovens or your vac pumps and all that stuff too. This is what he's doing here is pretty new to me.
Yeah, this
yeah,
is
low temp is definitely on the cutting edge of extraction of solventless extraction for sure. Which is why I've stuck with them since the beginning.
so now they're also still filtering it through a 25 micron, just one of their press bags.
So, which again, I would probably, for whatever reason, they've lost touch with rosin evolution, but I would use the 15 micron rosin evolution bags instead of the 25 micron. It's just a tighter
Tighter
mesh.
mesh. Yeah.
You said 15 micron?
Correct.
Okay. Is that the smallest they make?
Right now, I believe so. Yes.
Okay. I don't know if there's a reason to go smaller, but
You know, there's a couple gentlemen. I don't want to just say gentlemen because that's sexist, but there's a couple people in the community that are pressing and whatnot. And they're starting. You know, of course, people are going to make leaps and bounds, right? They're gonna find new things and figure new things out. But they're starting to use a different combination of screens. You know, for years I used a 25-25 160. You know, 25 filtration, 25 filtration, 160 for blowouts, right? But people have started to go, well, Pedro uses 25-25. What if I use 15-15? What if I don't use a 160? What if I just use 115? What if I use a 15 and in the inside of 25? You know, what if, right? So, and temperatures and pressures, my God, I've seen, I just this last week, I saw somebody who was actually pressing at 118 degrees. Now, times, again,
which is low, right?
Low.
Yeah, it seems
low.
Yeah, okay. So what's like a standard is like 160 or something like that? Like
169, 170, 180, somewhere in that
I was
range.
gonna say that's 180.
Yeah, somewhere in that range. So low. Of course, like I said, like I was gonna say, time then becomes a way crucial variable. But yeah, people are starting to play with different things, different pressures. You know, and not even just different pressures, different applications of pressure over the time, you know, like achieving higher pressures at 30 seconds versus 1 minute, you know, the speed at which the pressure is applied. There's the word I was looking for. There's the phrase I was looking for. The speed at which the pressure is applied starts becoming another variable in which we can track. And
for Fregrowli, we also, I mean, the new is bringing in data, right? Something. Absolutely. There's a ton of data now, and the presses, like Pedro, you've got one of the LT3s, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, the new digital controller. It logs all the pressures, everything right here.
The pressure sensor is badass.
That's awesome.
Pressure and temperature. I mean, you get it all right there.
You have to remain consistent, but yes, is awesome.
Yes. I mean, you get a full graph, and you can pretty much see when your bag is done. It's a neat freaking. It's cool to see that now.
Yeah,
I'm a data nerd.
Yeah, 100%.
I love my data.
I mean, the more the merrier. It's definitely helpful, you know, to those that want to utilize it.
It's key to repeatable processes.
100%, dude, 100%. And it's like this is such a like Pedro's been saying, it's such an unrepeatable process as it is because of the nature of growing this, you know.
Cultivars are the variable we can't control, so we have to control the ones we can.
Oh, but they want to, and maybe that's a topic for another show. But you know, dude, I live in farm country, and just driving by these soybean and cornfields and just all these different, you know, it's just monocrop areas. They're just the same height.
Is it Canada? Land. Canada, you have to buy your seeds from a government seed bank, don't you?
I have no idea, actually.
I believe that's how it was.
It's more your territory up that way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I don't cross over very much. I just stare at them. Just see them over there, just wave. And I've had a dab sitting here that I totally forgot about. The dab right shut off.
Oh yeah. Oh really? What's your time out on the dab?
That means it's been a minute.
I had something to add a minute ago, and I cannot for the life of me.
Something about the micron size, maybe. I think the biggest thing is the it's temperature, time, and atmospheric either exposure or pressure. Those seem to be the three biggest factors to, especially concentrates, but just cannabis in general, even like at least the post-harvest.
I almost had it floated off again.
Damn it! Microns. 15 stacking microns. That one really got me. I was interested.
It's fucking gone.
All right. So how many dabs have you guys lost in your keyboard?
How did? Oh my!
Enough to buy a new one.
I
This is
should
disgusting.
I should just take my camera down and show you my keyboard. So I have a slide out tray, right?
Bad.
Like my keyboard's not so bad. The tray that the keyboard sits in is another story.
No.
Oh, I have silicone mats covering my desk and everything because, like, yeah, it's just wax is a wild thing.
Yeah, that's why when I built the desk, I made sure it looks like wood, but it's totally cleanable laminate.
Nice.
Top is easy.
Good one.
How often you guys changing up strains? Do you guys like ever get tired of a strain? You know what I mean? Like that where you're just like, all right, I'm like 2 weeks in on the same thing. Like, please, can we harvest something else? You know?
Every dab.
Oh man.
Yeah, like the first dab I had was what the fuck did I do? I think I did critical. And then I think the second dab I did was some Talimon. And then I think I just did Trop B, and I did some Great Pie in between there too. I might have done some Honey Banana too. I don't remember now.
I've got 3 different ones on the desk. I don't know.
I'll smoke the same thing for a couple days. I'm good with it.
Yeah, just about every dab though. I'll get into like I like this cultivar, you know, and I was because like critical I hadn't had for a while, and we just harvested it. So I've been really enjoying critical lately. Yeah, and Trop C when we harvest Trop C, I really get fucking Trop C is so good. Talk about orange,
Dude, yeah. That's honestly I've never grown it. I've smoked a lot of different you know, growers versions and processors versions of it. It is one of my more favorite terpene profiles. I used to grow orange cookies, which was like a dumbed down version of Trop cookies. But Trop cookies, when done right, it's great, man. I know people talk shit on it, and it is kind of, you know, it's been around a while. It's been overplayed. It's been overdone. Whatever you want to call it. It's, you know, fat in and out and all that stuff. But the bottom line is the terps are great on it.
I am so ridiculously amazed that cannabis can taste like that, like oranges, right? And I've said this before, right? So cannabis tastes like crazy like oranges, right? Show me an orange that tastes like cannabis.
Yeah.
I'll wait.
Yeah.
Yeah, just the variety of
That's what fucking amazes me about it, dude.
You got to get to hops to find something that tastes like cannabis. You know what I mean? Which is a cousin of cannabis.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
That's
it just amazes me.
Dude, I mean, I don't come from like a science or plant or biodiverse, whatever. Like, you know, I don't come from this background. I don't think a lot of us do that ended up in this space. But what you just said right there is one of the just it's one of the most intriguing things about this plant, and what I think draws us to it the most is just that simple fact that it can smell like anything on this planet. I mean, you name it, a skunk, a car that's running diesel gasoline, an
Right.
orange on a tree, a garlic that came just fresh out of the ground. I mean, just pick it, dude. It's and we're still discovering more, and then we're talking about combinations of it. And I don't know how many terpenes are out there. I know it's in the hundreds just on the cannabis plant itself, but by God, if the combinations aren't in the millions, if not billions, you know, we will never discover the end of it. And I love terps, man.
The combinations, like fuck, dude. It's just
that's why
we're back to variables again.
Yeah,
you know?
That's why I grow from seed. I just like all the variation I get. You know, the chance of getting a really shitty washer is just a risk I take.
For sure.
You know,
But But okay, so I'm like the almost exact opposite, is where it's like, I've been propagating the same exact cultivars
Right.
for 6-7 years now because I love the terpene profiles so much. It's not that I don't try other ones and then, do a pheno hunt every year, but it's like there are just some that I will try to never get rid of. Hopefully.
If I had a higher plant count, I probably would keep mothers of but keeping with just the recreational 12, it's
impossible.
You pop them, you grow them.
That's a whole other grow conversation too, as to whether or not when cloning you should keep a mother, i.e. a plant, around for months and or years and keep cloning off of your mother, or if you should clone a clone over the years, So I think that's are we getting a what do they call it, a genetic drift or is that not as much of an issue? Because with critical, I've cloned a clone for dude. I mean, we've since the GrowTube days, So I mean, it's been a long time. So have we had any genetic drift there? I don't think so, but we haven't tested it, So
well, I mean, I've even done lab testing over the years, and you'd think you'd see some genetic drift or whatever if it's real, and I think it's possible. I think that these things can catch diseases, and if you're not cloning at a healthy time and you're propagating crappy plants, then you're probably going to see some drift. Right. But there's a way to do it right, and I think you and I are both examples of a way to do it right and keep something around that's still healthy. And I mean, I don't know. People tell me all the time it tastes just the same as they tried in 2016, 17, 18, 19, whatever,
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's what I found as well. It's not just myself that's claimed that it's this, the same terp profile over the years. It's everyone else as well.
Yeah, that seems like something new that just popped up. It's like someone fear mongering, trying to sell you out their genetics or some shit.
Well, I think the genetic drift concept has been around a long time, but I think it's been kind of battled. The topic or the idea has maybe been battled, and that's been around before. Really, we talked about viruses of our cannabis plant too, and so that's one of those things that I do think that can cause some form of genetic drift. I read a paper about it on specifically, I think it was monoterpenes that HLVD, whatever it's called, hot plate and viroid, that can actually change the content or the structure of monoterpenes within a plant. Now, this wasn't cannabis specific, but it was a peer-reviewed study that was done on plants with this virus and monoterpenes, and it's just like, oh well, god dang it, you know what I mean? Like, it could actually physically change the plant too if people are continuing to propagate it. So it's
now, guess what?
Yeah,
we got another fucking variable.
Yep,
and a whole nother episode to talk about. What we should call it? We should call this show Variables if we're going to continue this. Variables.
Perfect.
Variables.
That's kind of literally been the center of conversation over the whole show. We just kept coming back to it is the endless variables that we get, whether growing or processing. This plant is like you said, the millions and or billions when you start really breaking down the intricate, detailed freaking variables that we could manipulate.
And to that point, that kind of goes to your style versus my style of growing as well.
Absolutely, dude.
Where I like to control every variable I can, and you're like, I want nature to take control.
Yeah, it's another fucking variable. It's absolutely another fucking variable. 100%.
I'll be honest.
Your location, your elevation, your fucking
right.
I mean, just your own personal philosophy on it. I think I'm probably somewhere in between you guys at this point because I still am like trying to do this like mostly controlled. Like I came from many, many years of cocoa and synthetics, but now I'm doing swapped all over to LEDs, and now I'm doing all water only soil, and I'm just trying to indoors even, and you know, trying to like, you know, change things up a little bit, but like I'm like, oh, it's just like holding on and getting tugged both sides, and I don't know what to do.
I just had to run a weed whacker through my greenhouse. That's how organic I grow.
That's what my outdoor looks
Now-
like, and it's
now
not
you
an
go
under
outdoors.
greenhouse though.
Yeah, you go outdoors here, I'm all permaculture once you step out the front door. But my indoor grow, clean.
Like a lab, dude, like a lab.
We try to maintain it as organic as possible inside, but it does come with its dirtiness. That is its one of its biggest cons. Another one that I don't think a lot of people think about is the smell that sometimes you get with the different additives and or
my
compost and or, you know,
Yeah, sometimes you open a bag and
this Yahweh stuff, this
Yeah.
fermented fucking
Drive.
fuck,
Yeah.
It's like
dude.
it's milk.
Oh, dude.
Describe it to me.
It's spoiled milk and ass.
Yeah.
Just
Oh,
smashed
LAB.
together.
Yeah, labs. It's,
Oh,
Yeah.
Is it like
Oh.
sulfury or is it like literal like shit and
literally,
literally like
shit.
there was an outhouse that had been sitting there that had been used after a weekend long fucking
It's so
festival
good.
that's
for
been
the
sitting there
plant.
for 110.
That's
at
how you know
110
it's good.
degrees for 4
Right.
days.
So
Oh,
nasty.
And yeah, I mean it's right.
If you ask anybody, you'll be like,
Yeah.
look, it's starting to stink and turn it into layers. They'll be like, yeah, it's not ready quite yet. Like,
Oh.
just let it go.
Oh.
Oh, it's
It's-
so gross.
Oh,
Pedro,
God.
I know you guys got some.
You don't want to get on your skin.
Oh no.
It's hard to wash off.
Oh,
It is
oh,
very hard
it
to
holds
wash
on
off.
too.
The smell.
Are
Sorry,
we-
we're super
I'm curious though if we're all currently chicken farmers. I know Superiors. I know we are. You guys got chickens right now or no?
Oh,
we
No.
we stopped
Okay.
because of the amount. Well, the amount of eggs was probably the biggest reason. And just
Too
the
many
amount-
or what?
We had
Yeah,
too many
it
chickens.
was
Really?
we only had a
Yeah.
dozen, I think.
No,
and
we had
just-
like 14 or 15 chickens,
Yeah.
and it was just too many.
I have an entire fridge full of eggs right now. So
yeah.
yeah,
You
And
got some restaurants you should be able to hook up, buds.
yeah.
right. And just it wasn't a lot of work,
I don't
but
wanna see
I've
an
got a
egg
lot
seller.
going on, man. And it's just another thing and another thing.
It's
and another
not a lot of work though, you know, like
thing.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
It
with
was
all the chores.
Kind of nice and fun and whatnot, you know.
Yeah.
and having a lot of eggs and not having to buy eggs, I mean, was nice, but versus the inconvenience and whatnot, you know, it's a decision we
Tend to
made.
give them to the older folks around town, and we just
There you
try to
go.
give them away as much as possible. But everybody's selling eggs now. It's like during the pandemic, everyone got fucking chickens.
Mhm.
There's
Mhm.
there's
100%.
4 signs on my road, and I live in the middle of fucking nowhere.
It's funny.
That is-
It's funny.
For me, it was like not worth my fucking time to try to sell a dozen eggs for $3.
Yeah.
No, I was just
No,
like, oh, this
Bree
is annoying.
said the other day she wanted to put the sign out, and I'm like, no, because like if you're busy, I hear the driveway alarm go off. That
Right.
means I have to go out and talk to strangers. I don't want to do that.
Uh-huh.
dude, that's
Yeah.
what you got. You should
For
be
$2.
Right, $2. It ain't worth it to me.
you've got to have the ability to have a roadside stand where you're at.
Exactly.
I
Put a
know
refrigerator out.
for residential agricultural areas in most of Michigan, you're allowed to have a 24/7 365 roadside stand. Now, I know eggs are one of those things, maybe a little bit easier where you're at, but eggs are one of those things where it's like, yeah, you don't really want them sitting out in the sun. You know, you can kind of like leave beans and potatoes and shit like that out there. But yeah, most people I see put them in a cooler or something like that. But
refrigerator situation.
yeah, but
That's what we saw. We
Gotta
said
preserve those terps, man.
Yes.
Fucking terps.
Those fucking Americana terms.
No, you
But
can
yeah,
always
we
preserve
got the
them.
shed there. We said we could put a fridge in front of it and plug it in through the shed and do all that. But
Yeah, it's like a pain.
last time
Come
we
on,
did
man.
it,
You could figure out how much money you're making per gram of input that you're giving them versus the out. I know you could have some fun with this.
Yeah, Budsy could do that shit.
During the summer though, like we don't feed them shit. They don't eat.
Oh
shit.
yeah. Hell
They're
yeah, dude.
outside. They've got
They're
that
out
huge
running.
run.
Yep.
Free roam.
Yeah,
Free
they just,
roam-ish.
yeah, they've got like a 1,500 square foot enclosed area. They just go
Yeah,
nuts.
yeah. Yours is sick, dude. That's beautiful, man.
It's awesome.
really well. I mean, it looks professional. I would have assumed, had I not known you did it, I would assume
Yeah.
that like you guys
No,
hired
no,
someone
hey.
to do it. You know,
That's Bree's father, or Bree's dad. And like total Youper style. We just started putting shit up, and stuff works out.
yeah, that's
Like we
homestead
start nailing
life.
boards together. Next thing we know, we got a 24-foot tall chicken shed. It's awesome.
And the
Got a
cutest little
wall.
bantam rooster I've ever seen.
That's kind of
Yeah.
my style too, but it looks way less professional.
Yeah. No. We're building a greenhouse on it now, so it's fun. Just putting 4 posts in the ground and then just starting nailing boards. And
No way.
Shit.
Yep.
Oh, shit.
Wait,
So-
like over the chicken run?
no, so where the chicken run
Oh,
is
Just
straight
build
up,
off
the
of it.
highest
Yeah.
peak, the other side will have the greenhouse coming out 12 foot. So it'll be 12 foot by 20 foot.
nice. Yeah, I remember
Just
you.
a lane.
Yeah. Super easy to build. But
I
Yeah.
got a question. So are you completing the circle? Are you collecting the shit, composting the shit, and using the shit on your cannabis plants?
I'm using it on my outdoor garden, not on my cannabis plants.
What is there any reason why?
Because I don't grow outdoors.
Oh.
I mean, I do, but just randomly for giant plants. And every time I cut them down and feed them to chickens, too fucking big. That's too much work to cut up all that shit.
Oh,
The last one
yeah.
was like 15 foot tall, and I didn't do shit to it. I just put a plant in that 3x3 we just threw together from chicken shit and forest wood. Like
We bring friends over.
we just did lasagna style.
You
piled some
have
shit in the grow
to.
bed.
We have harvest parties.
You got it, dude. The pizza and beer is here. Come on.
Yeah.
We got
Man.
fresh scissors for everyone.
Lots of rosin. Come on.
Something
over.
I
Yeah.
need to order is fresh.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, it's almost time. You don't want to be caught with them all being sold out and stuff too. But
No.
Dizzy, I'm glad you brought that up because that is the reason kind of I leaned into the chicken talk is and seeing if everybody was chicken farmer still, because it is a great source of compost,
Mhm.
but it's a stinky one. You know what I mean? Like rabbits are almost like arguably a better, I guess, gram per gram. Yeah, you
Right.
can't say pound for pound, gram for gram.
It's easier to
like
collect for rabbits too.
that for sure too, because basically with chickens you either have to have them in a run and like or in their their coop and be scooping it constantly and like changing it out, or you're just like letting them run around in your fields and it's just
Right.
it's ending up in
Shit
your
everywhere.
fields.
Happening on its own.
It brings a question to me. The first thing that comes to mind, and this would be the addition of another panel member, would be the collection and the use of chicken shit versus the collection and use of worm compost shit.
Compost.
Yeah, because of the different methods of living style of the animal or insect itself, which would which would have an impact on the collection method. I like Fregrowli was saying, a fucking big ass yard or this contained bag in your room, worm compost bag that you have.
So
So
worm
we've actually
casting.
solved that with our run with a collection of chicken shit. So our run is all enclosed and we do deep litter. So you go at least a foot deep with your straw in there. They'll stir it for you. They'll shit all over it. They'll stir it. After 6-8 months, I move the top layer over, take all the bottom, goes right into a compost pile. It's ready in 2 weeks, ready for plants.
Because it's had the time.
Yeah, it's so pretty.
But that's the challenge with chicken shit is it's super hot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
was
You can't
just gonna say,
because rabbit poop you can literally bury in the roots, like right
Yeah.
next to your. You know
can
what I
put it
mean?
straight in, you don't have to compost it.
It is. Yeah, it
worm
is
shit
ready.
is very high in compost, or is very high in nitrogen as well. I don't think it's quite as high as chicken shit.
It's not as high as chicken shit, and that's why
Right.
you can immediately put it on top of your plants and water it in, and
Water it in.
maybe even throw some mix it in with a big pot or something like that. But you don't really want to be transplanting directly into worm castings because,
Right.
that's where you're going to run into those probably
Agreed.
nutrient lockout and being not-
Crazy imbalance.
Potential burning.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
that's more of an amendment, I would say.
1,000,000%.
Whereas chicken compost or chicken shit directly is more of like an ingredient for a compost.
I would say either a compost or a compost tea.
Yeah, for sure.
We can do a second level where we'll actually take it now. I just did this last weekend and moved 2 or 3 truckloads over from inside to the outdoor run. And it's already half mixed. It's leaves. It's all the compost we've tossed out there throughout the year. It's everything. Throw all the shit from inside on there. It's dusty, crazy stuff, but it mixes with the wet stuff outside and it makes just the most incredible soil. And then we literally scoop that out onto the hugelkultur, directly onto the hugelkultur. It's how we've been building it for 4 years now.
See, and
This year,
that would be where we'd walk down the path of an organic growing show, you know, where we'd fucking have more panels and shit. We're basically recreating the GrowTube here, guys.
Hey, speaking of which, we should consider Friday nights for this.
Oh,
I you know, we don't need to talk about this live or whatever, but I was thinking about that, and Tuesdays are a little rough for me.
Tuesdays were a whatever show thing, you know. It was just Dizzy and I decided whatever. We're literally just fucking whatever. Tuesday fucking nights. We've been doing it forever. Yeah,
you've been carrying that for a long time, which you know,
300 and whatever fucking episodes. This is quite a few.
But as far as I know, that Friday slot is open. You know what I'm saying? So, and it's the best, probably honestly the best time for me.
People did like it.
You know, or friend.
They liked it a lot.
Boys are back in town.
We'll have to think about this. Well, we got Budsy involved now too. He can help us.
Big time help.
Cool. Well, I think we're about the time, right?
Yeah, we should probably.
Yeah,
I'm about time
about
to burn it.
Yeah.
But man, like you said, I am down, man. I think we should definitely think about this and do this again. This was fun, and I loved it. Had a great time.
We'll definitely
me too.
Figure out how to take some questions, and that's fun too.
Yeah, we're getting the dude. I love getting into the production of things. I am. Yeah. Let's get that going. I love
you guys can.
Fucking nerds over here. No, yeah, I think, and you know, I think it'd be maybe wise to suggest another, you know, ability to at least either have another panel member, like you're saying, or guests. I think the guest option would be cool.
Rotation.
Yeah, rotation, man. I think that's big, and I there's a couple, you know, channels that do it, and plenty that don't. And I think it's a great way to mix it up and just continuously have that conversation evolving and, you know, progressing, and getting more perspectives. And I think it's a great thing. You know, it's like knowledge is power. The more you know, so
yeah, absolutely.
I'm all for that. And yeah, dude, the multicasting aspect of this is super cool because this is the first time I've done that. I know that that's like a possibility or whatever.
I'm wishing I would have done YouTube now.
Yeah, well, let's figure it out, man. Like, because you guys have gotten a lot of shout outs on my YouTube channel, like, oh, Pedro with Dizzy, they're back. You know, and then a couple people are like, wait, this must not be broadcasting now. What's happening? so yeah, it's but yeah, I think if we just kind of make people aware of that, then it's like a widespread kind of thing, and we're gonna have this cool conversation, man. I love it. This is great.
This is kind of cool. I'm cheesing.
Hell yeah.
I'm down. All right, guys. Everybody in chat. Y'all have a great night.
Cheers.
Take care, everyone. Have a good one.
Budsy. Have a good night. Love you guys.
I'll click end broadcast.